That would be a nice little thing to put in a film, wouldn't it? I think that art, from what I know of it, comes from stress or having difficulty. It makes a kind of explosion in a person. It causes grit, you know. The metaphor would be the oyster and the pearl. You need problems to make beauty, and beauty is a kind of salvation, a correction. As Yeats says, you get hurt into art. The part of my childhood that was really happy was when I was in Islington, but before that around South London, around where all the immigrants go, the old Kent Road. I had a very happy childhood. I thought it was fantastic. And the stress, the problem started after Islington, after I left the Catholic school. That caused me a psychic disorder of enormous proportions, where I lost my base. With the loss of that came the decision on some level to become an artist. And I remember at that point, when I was at school, in the state schools, I became very creative. I wanted to make art more than anything. I wanted to make art more than life itself. And I would have done anything. And I did. I struggled like crazy to get out of the working classes and to go to university. I went to evening school and I studied, and of course there was no security to it, and my father was absolutely not in favor of this. He was very afraid for me and thought that I would end up as a drunk in a garret. Here we are coming to the wonderful Metropolitan Museum, where one can now see an exhibition of Sean Scully's Wall of Light paintings, if one has an interest to do such a thing.
Do you want to go and have a look at some of the individual paintings themselves and maybe talk about ones that might be easy for people to understand?
Easy for people to understand.
Well, I don't mean it in that way, or maybe easy for you to...
That's not really my thing, making things easy for people to understand. However, I think for abstraction, these are extremely accessible to people. They're not hard-edged, so they make a lot of reference to nature. This one, Desert Night, was made in New York after a visit to the desert in Nevada. So it really is a portrait of the desert from my memory. So obviously it's an abstract painting. It's very rigorous in that sense. So what I'm doing is building a surface with blocks, with units, that it has in it a kind of lit up quality, even though it's all painted in grey. So there's a lot of stuff coming through from the back, and the brushstrokes are made in such a way as to allow information that is behind to get through. The structure is quite powerful, but the treatment of the structure is emotional. So you have this dichotomy or this duality between the intellect and the body in a lot of these paintings. You know, the painting doesn't explain itself. I mean, the painting's not an explanation. The painting doesn't try and teach. So the painting is a body of experience. Well, let's say you go to a mountain. You wouldn't expect that mountain to explain itself. You go to a tree, you don't expect the tree to explain itself to you. It's an experience. And an experience is not an explanation. And the problem, my disagreement, I would say, with a lot of art that's around, is that it's an explanation. It's not an incarnation.
That's where they'll put me when I'm dead and gone. Oh, if I should die, die before my time. If I should die, died before my time. Bury my body down that line. Bury me, baby, down in the sand.
I'm going to make my stone block in this rather gorgeous place. That little stick there is where it's going to go. And that one up there is where it's going to end. So this should be 20 meters. And as you can see, it will obstruct this rural highway to perfection. Yeah, I must say it's kind of a funny place to put a sculpture. When it came to building sculptures, or being asked to make a sculpture, it was interesting because I didn't really have a stylistic problem to solve. What I decided to do was to use natural material and accept the accidents of the cutting, which is of course profoundly different to what I do in the paintings. In the paintings there are no accidents. There's the result of an attitude, but it's not an accident. So this is what I'm going to do. I would say that the sculpture can be seen as a wall of light painting utterly cubed. And so it is entirely made of compressed weight. So I forced all the space out of it by filling it all in with the drawing. That's what we're going to end up with. Well, of course, it's going to be bigger than that. There's something impenetrable about the sculpture that doesn't really apply to the painting. So it has a different kind of message. Yeah, it's a thing. It's really a thing. And the painting is a surface, so that's the difference. It's between a surface and a thing. It's like looking at the surface of a leopard, let's say, and the thing itself. It's quite a different experience. When we're getting the stone from Portugal, and it's dug out of a quarry near Lisbon and reorganized. So it's built in Portugal and remade. Beautiful day, huh?
When it rains, it's even better because the color.
The color's beautiful.
Contrast is nice.
The color is fantastic. This is wonderful. I want it to look like it's drawn. Instead of holding a pencil like this, like somebody holds a pencil like this.
Yes. Okay.
Like it was built by a beast.
Okay. I understand.
I do things and I have a feeling about it, and then I sort of trust that it's going to be okay. So there's a way that I always work, which is with blocks, using these simple shapes. And I have a very strong sense of material. And then I kind of let it go. I let it have its emotion, its character, and its nature. I don't try and interfere too much with its nature. I'm going to be finished which year? This year for sure.
This year for sure.
But just bear in mind that in the winter in France it's not that nice.
But they can fix it in July, July, August, September. Huh?
Okay,
So
that's what we're looking at.
April, May, we finish. 2 months
start
we
to ship
in June. 2 months we should
Okay,
be
so
about
we're
to finish.
talking about what, September. The paintings are layered. The mystery of the painting comes from the layering and the way that the colour is poetically found on the painting. I mean, it's a kind of colour and a kind of light with a kind of materiality and a kind of edge that you can only find in painting. It doesn't exist anywhere else, and it's not meant to.
I'm gonna go out and get myself a gun. I'm gonna go out, get myself a gun. I'm gonna ride into the morning sun. I'm gonna come back one day. I'm gonna come back one day.
No, I'm an Irish-American artist,
Yeah,
or an
yeah.
American-Irish artist, whichever way you like to put it.
Yeah.
My greatest, deepest wish is to make something that works like glue
Yeah.
or bridges.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a bridge builder,
Yeah.
and I want to find the commonality in the human soul and paint it.
Yeah.
And now you've got another one. I'd like all people to be able to find ways to communicate.
You know, I have 3 inside for people who I didn't want to bother you. Would you mind if I brought them into you, the books? To
Yes.
sign? Yeah? I'll only be 2 seconds.
Yes,
I'll
I
bring them inside.
mind.
Oh, you do mind? Well, that's fine.
No, bring them
Are you
in.
sure?
I just wanted to see what you would do if I said I minded.
Well, you know, I told these people that I may or may not be able to get them signed, but I didn't
Okay.
want them annoying you, so hold on a second.
My idea was, it wasn't an idea that I thought of as a young person, but it gradually evolved into a concept, I guess. And that is that instead of changing forms, thinking about shapes, new shapes, so on and so on, which there aren't any of course. What I would try and do is paint the same thing and develop myself with it. When I was younger, I was a lot more fearful, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, a lot less comfortable with myself, and I knew less about where I was going, and I wasn't prepared to be as helpless or as innocent as I am now, let's say. The work has evolved in its character, and thus I believe its meaning and what it signifies has changed.
Yeah.
But it's made out of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the same stuff used differently.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was a more interesting idea
Yeah.
than jumping around and trying to think of things to do.
Yeah.
To kind of do something in an existential way as a human and allow that to change itself. It's true that people, I know a lot of them, have worked and they made their paintings or they made their art and they haven't really got anywhere. But at the same time, they're able to make their art. And then the only question is this issue of success. But then when you get involved in that, when you get involved in the issue of success, then you get involved in the issue of fame. And then what is enough? Fame requires certain sacrifices, but that's compensated by certain privileges. And I've led a life of uncertainty, but I've also led an extraordinarily privileged life. I don't think it's deep enough. What do you think?
I think it's enough.
You think that's deep? That's a meter.
Yeah.
It's and it's over 1,000 tons.
Yeah, spread.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
For your husband.
Yes.
Because he knows more about these things than I do. Is that deep enough for a foundation? Yeah. That was my idea,
Yeah.
but it's not there. No, you have to drill like with a bang, 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 bang. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Till you hit rock. Yeah.
So basically, don't worry about the foundation because all of that is being filled up with a dry mix so that it doesn't shrink. It's compacted. And on top of that, you have a 40 centimetre raft, which is reinforced, which is 20 centimetres smaller than the whole structure. And the stones will be hanging over by.
He's asking, you sure you don't need to put the structure into the down to the in the ground?
Sure.
You sure?
This has got a kind of unreasonable energy about it, and it's the opposite of sculpture in the sense that instead of articulating space, as does sculpture and architecture, it destroys space. It's attitude driven. So everything I'm doing, it comes from a certain way of thinking and a way of being. It has a degree of physical arrogance about it. So when this is finished, it's going to be a block of impenetrable material and feeling, I hope.
Said the moon to the stars in the sky. Soon said the wind that followed him home. Who said the cloud that started to cry? Me said the riders dry as a bone. Who said the sun that melted the ground? Why said the river that refused to run? Where said the thunder without a sound? Here said the rider and took up his gun. No, said the stars to the moon in the sky. No, said the trees that started to moan. No, said the dust that blinded his eyes. Yes, said the rider as white as a bone. No, said the moon that rose from his sleep. No, said the cry of the dying sun. No, said the planets that started to weep. Yes, said the rider and laid down his gun.
When you teach, you have to stop thinking about yourself. And you can't think about yourself self-consciously while you're teaching, because you're doing it for the other person. It's an absolute commitment to the needs of the other person. So you don't bring your ego into the class. You forget yourself, forget your own problems, and it's like taking a little holiday from yourself. The question is, in the end, how sustaining is it for you, the author? Because the only thing that matters is really conviction. Conviction moves mountains. Just that, on its own, will move mountains. Even if you have nothing else, conviction is very powerful. When you're a student, you are in turmoil. Because you have ambition without the power to back it up. And it's constantly humbling, of course. And what you need, really, is a conviction. It will carry you very far. Because it equals a kind of peace. And the reason it equals a kind of peace is because it's created out of faith. You need faith to produce conviction. And I was once asked, some students asked if I could make a sentence about what they should be doing. And I said it very simple, which is actually paraphrasing John F. Kennedy. Don't think about what you can get out of it. Think about what you can put into it. That is really my modus operandi. Everybody who tries to be conformist is uninteresting. These paintings have a lot of resistance in them. And
friction.
Yeah, but they have, in a way, they're quite noble and courageous. I like that in them. They are, in a way, awful, but in another way, they're getting really interesting. When you teach, I think it's very interesting to help somebody to reach their potential or hook them up with their potential. This is all I'm interested in. I'm not interested in controlling them necessarily. I'm more interested in hooking them up so that they become empowered. Discomfort is part of growth. When you're comfortable, it's all over. Well, fuck, look at that.
Nice.
It's big, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's not domestic.
It's going to be bigger though, is it? Or is that the height? No,
That's the height.
There's the height. I could see it even bigger now.
I think it should be a lot bigger.
It should be a lot bigger. I think we should change the project.
Well, now you've said that, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I see.
I'm disappointed.
It does look a bit domestic, actually.
Do you think?
Yes.
Oh God, I shouldn't have brought you
A few
along.
more stones would do. No, it's great. It's the same height as that truck.
It's a curious mixture of control and lack of control. But it's the pressure between these two forces that create something, I believe. So, to return to the original question, did it turn out like I thought it would? Well, the answer really is no. But none of my work ever turns out like I really think it's gonna be. Actually, I don't really think it's gonna be. Or to quote Monet, I know what I'm gonna do and then I do something different. And I usually don't really know what I'm gonna do. I sort of have an intuition. And that's enough for me. But the only thing I could compare it to was Finnegan's Wake or a Jackson Pollock painting. It seems quite mad. It's geometric, but it's mad. Here, the forms that I use are fed by the sensuality and the sense of humanism of the streets of Barcelona. The imperfection, the shadow, the light of Barcelona is what fascinates us. Is what keeps us coming back. Life is very strange, you know, it's very difficult to design. If you set out to do something, it'll turn out different to what you set out to do. You want to be commercially successful. If you want to be commercially successful, I think you won't be. If you love the world, it will love you back. But first you have to love it. You can't wait for it to love you and then you love it. That's not the way it works. You love first and you give first, and then it gives back. I believe that in that energy flows around and it comes around. And you have to put out.
Was there a time when the world started to love you?
I would say in the last few years. But I had to love the world for quite a long time first. But it's all right, you know? That's the way it is. Nobody asks you to become a painter. Nobody asks you to become a singer. Nobody asks you to become a poet. You know, you do it. If you can do it and support yourself, you're already privileged. And as a friend of mine says, it has intrinsic value. So if something has intrinsic value, you already got what you want, whether you're successful or not. Because being able to do it and being able to make these paintings and have the time to make these paintings, possibility to make them and show them, has intrinsic value in and of itself. It's already a privilege to do something that you want to do. Barcelona has a history of being able to accommodate its artists and give them a kind of anonymous quality so they can walk around and visit places they want to visit. And our life here is extremely simple. If we walk from the house to the studio, back to the house, to the studio, and then we eat out sometimes in the evening. It's very, very small. The other one is double the size. It just didn't get any food, it's malnutrition.
I'm asking for the milk.
There, look. This is Picasso, and this Picasso is the world, according to Barcelona. And we're going to watch adventure movies together at night, and we're also going to watch things like boxing and tennis on the TV together. And he's going to help me in the studio. He's going to help me to start painting. I'm not really thinking about ideas in the work. I mean, there are some ideas in my work, but I'm, in a sense, more interested in the commitment to make a painting, and it's the commitment that is ferocious in some way. It is absolutely without condition. And I give everything I can to make that painting when I'm making that painting. And I hold nothing back. I do the same when I teach. I'm doing the same now. I'm here. All of me is here. So the mind has to shut down and stop. In other words, the mind has to stop its sense of greed. In other words, options. I could be doing this, I could be doing that. I'm privileged to be here. I'm privileged to be here and not be dead. Be able to do this, to be able to have this conversation. It's happening right now. We are living. So when I'm making the painting, by the time I get to make the painting, then I'm not thinking. I'm making the painting. I'm being. And it's the difference between preparation and action. When I'm preparing myself, I'm thinking about all different stuff. But when I act, I act. When I do it, I do it. And I gradually, over my life, learned how to act. To put all of me in the moment. All of my might, however relative that might be, in that moment. So, I can make the painting for you. I don't know if the painting's made. But I can paint in front of you. And it still doesn't explain it. It still doesn't explain why I started in the middle and I didn't start at the bottom, and it doesn't explain why I didn't paint the top left until I painted the top left, on and on and on. It doesn't explain why things are where they are, how they got there. So we're still separated by oceans of misunderstanding. And the painting is clear, but it doesn't explain itself. The painting is mysterious, and that's the thing about painting. It cannot be, in a sense, demystified, even to me. I have no idea why I did what I did. I just did it. And then I have to try and understand it. But there's some moment where you cannot explain why. Why this, not that? There's some part of the creative process that you'll never be able to unravel. Me too. I mean, in a sense, I have no idea what happened then. But I can't do more. Not today.
Said the moon to the stars in the sky. Soon said the wind that followed him home. Who said the cloud that started to cry? Me said the rider as dry as a bone. Who said the sun that melted the ground? Why said the river that refused to run? Where said the thunder without a sound? Here said the rider and took up his gun.